guys. So I wanted to chime in on the controversy going on in social media right now and just put in my 2 cents. Okay. Back in 2018, I actually traveled to China. I was there mainly to absorb the culture, but in addition to absorbing the culture, one of the things that they did was they took us to different factories. So we did tours not only of the city, but we actually went into where they did silk, jade, pearl. We went to tea factories. You name it, we did it. And I bought so many clothes and so many other items that I actually had to buy another suitcase. Like, it was crazy, the prices and everything else like that. So, first, let me also tell you about how I actually got there. Groupon actually had a sale in December, right after Thanksgiving. It was $800. They pick you up from the hotel, from the airport, take you to the hotel, take you around the city to see, the different cultural sites and what have you. And then the hotel, you get free breakfast, and then you get dinners for most of the nights. We got dinner. Okay. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. I hopped on it. I got a good deal on the airfare and everything, and so I went. So that's basically how I got to be out there, and that's how come. And when I was out there, that's when I was told that pretty much everything is made in China, including all of the luxury items, and many of the designer items are also made in China. What I was told was that the designers themselves will go to those factories and they will go over what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Sometimes it's something like, oh, you didn't do a cross stitch or a double stitch or whatever it is. Okay. And so they will discard a number of bags and then take the other bags to Italy. And I've also been to Italy. I went to Italy back in 2019. And they'll put the finishing touches, and a label will say made in Italy. By the way, the people in a lot of those Italian factories are Chinese too. That's another thing. But anyway, so all the other bags that didn't get accepted, those are kind of like called knockoffs. But it was made in the same factory, a lot of times by the same person. There really wasn't, a lot of times there wasn't really that much difference. And most of us who are not trained, because I'm not trained in that area, when you look at it, you don't really know the difference. Like, somebody has to kind of like point out, look at this stitch compared to that stitch, that kind of thing. That's how you know. Okay, this is legit, and this is, I don't know if I would say counterfeit, because it's the same material. It's the same, it's the same thing. It's just there's one or two things that's off. Sometimes there's just one little tiny minute thing that's off, and it's automatically labeled as counterfeit. All right. So that's basically what I was told. And I don't know, for some reason, sometimes when people tell me stuff, I think the whole world knows, but it turns out no. Especially now, I'm looking and I'm seeing that, most of you guys weren't even aware of that. But I want to say this, particularly to those of you who have never been to China: be careful, be cautious buying directly from factories, since you've never been there. And even if you have been to China and you've never been to that particular factory, I would still be cautious, because scammers are everywhere. Scammers are everywhere. And you don't want to run the risk of, any misrepresentation. The other thing too to note is that sometimes when you buy from these foreign countries, sometimes their sizing is like very different. From those of you who buy, let's say, on Temu or Shein, you know what I'm saying. The size is very different from here in the United States. You might be a medium in the United States, and then you go and buy one of their outfits, and you're an extra large. Okay, that does happen. And then when you want to go and return it, especially if you want to get a refund, sometimes that doesn't always happen. And it's not just with clothes. The other day I bought some wall tiles that were soundproof, supposedly. And they didn't give me wall tiles. They gave me the tiles that you put on the floor. And you can't really use floor tiles on the wall. So I called and I said, listen, I want my money back. This is not going to work. And they were like, shipping and handling is going to be too much. What if we just charge you a restocking fee? And the restocking fee was like $100. So that's why I say you got to be careful no matter what it is. You got to be careful when you're buying products from overseas. Because the misunderstandings, even though they're not scams, it can cost you. All right. So how do you kind of like get over to a certain extent? Well, I'm lucky enough to have a company. I work for a company that had an office in China. That did recently, shut down, but I still know the people that used to work there. And then we still have an office in Hong Kong. And we also have another office in Japan, Tokyo. So, basically for me, it's just a phone call and an email saying, hey, what websites do you shop on? And they share that with me. But even though they share that with me, I still got to be careful because a lot of times, like the websites that they use, that they shop on, where they get the deep discounts, they're not in English. So you kind of like, sometimes you can switch to English, but sometimes you have to use like another site, like Google Translate or whatever, and put your phone up to it so that it can tell you in English what it is that you're looking for. What it is that you're looking at. Okay. So the other thing that you can do is, I had a coworker and she has a business on the side where she makes wigs and she does lashes. So what she did was, after I went, she contacted the tour guides that was on my trip and she spoke to them. They also they told her like where all the factories and everything else was, and then they also hooked her up with a company that assigns translators for people. So when she went there, she met up with the translator, and the translator was able to translate everything into English, break it down so that she understood. And they were also able to negotiate better prices. See, she was just going to go up there and just pay whatever they told her to pay. Because, again, this was her first time in the country. She's not familiar with the culture. She really don't care about the culture. She just care about getting the products and making that money, which is what she did. And she's been doing it successfully ever since. Okay. So that is what you guys can do. And that's what I advise you guys to do. I don't advise you guys to just go on TikTok and just, go to the different factories that the people are recommending that they're saying, oh, you can go. Because another thing too, when I went, none of those factories had websites that they took us to. They'll have maybe like a business card some of them. But like that hair factory that they took me to, they did not have a website. I know where to find them if I were to get up and go now, because I have a good sense of direction. I know it was in Old Town. That was one of the areas that they took us to in Shanghai. Another thing too that I gotta say this is that in Shanghai they got these underground markets. They're like under the subway. The subway connects to them. It's a maze down there, and people have gone to these places and they've come up missing. Nobody knows what has happened to them. When the tour guides take you down there, they always say, stick together, do not wander off on your own. Because they know that, unfortunately, there are some unscrupulous people that will hurt you, or that will make you disappear. Let me just say it that way. You know, it is a maze, and you can get lost, because I almost got lost until I found someone else that was in my group, and I said, even though I'm finished, I'm going to hang around with them and get together with them until I see an exit. When I saw that exit, that's when I left. And guess what? When I left, another guy that was down there who was a merchant, I noticed that he was following me. But luckily there was like a police car, and I was, basically I went over there and I didn't say nothing to the police. I just just hang around there, turned around, and that same guy was gone. So that's why I say, you guys, even, if you have the money and you have the means and you have the time to go, some of the places where you can get really good discounts are dangerous. And you should not go alone. You should be extra, extra careful when you're shopping in some of these places. And I heard that China is not the only place that does it. So please don't say, oh, it's no. Dubai, another country where I heard things like that also happen. They may not necessarily have like wholesaling factories and stuff like that, like China, but they have certain neighborhoods that you got to be careful. You can't just go up there by yourself, because you might not come back, period. All right. But yeah, as far as discounts are concerned, yes, China does have great discounts. Great discounts. I'm not really too much of a fashion label whore like that, but I got one of the purses. I got it for like $60. I got a glove from, now I can't remember the name of it. That was sheepskin, $4. I couldn't believe it. I'm still questioning it, but it's the warmest gloves that I own, so it has to be the real deal. But yeah, it's mad cheap, mad cheap. As a matter of fact, there was a guy that I met on the tour. He says he goes every year because the suits in America that are like $2,000, he'll go out there, buy several suits, maybe spend maybe like $100-$150 on the suit, get it tailored so that'll come up to $200. And he says the tour, the airline ticket, and all of that, plus the suits, a lot of times is cheaper than if he were to just buy one suit here in America. He lived in California, so that's their prices are different. Everybody doesn't necessarily pay the same price all over the United States. That's another thing. But yeah, he says he doesn't even pack anything in his suitcase. He brings an empty suitcase because he knows that when he goes out there, he's going to see a whole bunch of stuff for the low, and it's going to fill up his bag. And I believe it. I believe it because, like I said, I came and the suitcase I brought with me was a big suitcase. I had to check that bag in, the suitcase I brought with me, because it was 15 days that we were out there. And I was like, okay, you know, I had room in my suitcase to buy other things. So I thought I was good to go. I was not. I had to buy a second suitcase. A second suitcase to bring all of the stuff that I bought. And the stuff that I bought was, most of it was stuff I needed. I didn't even buy a whole lot of stuff that I wanted. It was stuff that I actually needed, you know. So yeah, guys, I feel like it's worth a trip. It's worth checking out, as opposed to listening to somebody that you don't know who's telling you to, you know, go and buy directly from them. You don't know if they are legit. And then some of these designers are fighting back and are saying, no, we don't do anything in China. I think some of them are lying though, because I did see some of them out there. And we did go places we weren't supposed to go. That's another story that I don't really wish to share too much because I don't want to get nobody in trouble. But yeah, no. I wouldn't trust some of the people who are saying buy directly from me. I would actually go out there and make sure that person is legit, you know, because their court system and our court system is not the same. And who knows, since President Trump is not popular right now amongst in that particular nation, you don't know how they're going to treat you and how they feel about you. So just move carefully. And that's all I got to say. Until next time, have a good night.